Assalamu alaikum dear students, and welcome to the 24th session of the KIPS Distance Learning Program Current Affairs Newspaper Roundup session. I am your host Shahrukh Haider, and the topic for today is going to be twofolds. First of all, we're going to see what is the racism question that has suddenly erupted into a volcano in the United States of America. And secondly, we're going to see what kind of impacts can we predict and are already having on Pakistan related to the COVID-19 global pandemic. So first of all, the racist question in the United States of America. It has a very long history. The opening sentences of the Declaration of Independence that set the stage for United States independence from the British Crown in 1776 starts with these important and sort of ever eulogized words that have been immortalized in the US Constitution and around the world. These words are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are basic fundamental human rights. Thomas Jefferson was the author of the Declaration of Independence, and he was the one who included these important words into that declaration, which marked the American Revolution, which then triggered many revolutions in the coming century, which led to the democratic transition of Europe. The liberal democratic West, the liberal democratic Europe, has its roots in the American Revolution. But there is something very off about the American Revolution, and something ironical about the important three rights that Jefferson upheld above everything else for every human being: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. What is that controversy? Thomas Jefferson was the owner of at least 300 black slaves. United States, during the British Empire's reign and colonialism over it, was the largest market for black slaves. All of the revolutionary figures of the American Republic were black slave owners. Yet they still believed in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for every human being. Do you know why? Because they considered the black Africans lesser human somehow, savage creatures who could not be considered equal to the white man. And that mentality to an extent still permeates in the white man's mind in the United States today, especially in the white supremacists that are supporters of the Trump administration and the Trump persona. Besides that, if we look at the current conditions of the United States of America, despite having such a liberal democracy, despite having such an outspoken human rights lobby and so much funding around the world to the protection of human rights, and so much legislation enshrined into the very constitution and the institutional structure of the United States to protect human rights, United States has one of the highest levels of police brutality in the world. Moreover, the United States also has the highest percentage of black men in prisons than anywhere in the world where there is a black minority, and not in majority nations, obviously. 37% of the total incarcerants in US prisons are black men, whereas 32% are white men and women. Whereas if we look at the percentage of population of black men in the United States and women, it's about 12%, whereas the white population constitutes 72% of the total United States population. Yet black percentage in prisons around United States is much higher than white percentage. This represents a systematic racist question, a systematic problem of discrimination and racial nature of United States criminal justice system. Black men are distrusted more than white men are. They are considered to be criminals in waiting. Every black man is a criminal in the eyes of the criminal justice system of the United States, and they can turn towards criminal activities anytime which is why the police must be vigilant of activities conducted by young black men, because they are most prone to crime. Now, interestingly, there is some truth to that. Proportionally speaking, black men commit more crimes in the United States than white men. But this discounts the very important reality that majority of the crimes that are committed by black men, the largest majority, are for sustenance, to provide food, to provide shelter, and to seek basic necessities of life, which are enshrined in the United States Constitution and is the right of every US citizen. But nonetheless, they are wholly denied to the black population, which is why they turn to crime in order to gain some semblance of stability in life, financial viability, and some power. Otherwise, if they do not resort to criminal means, they are forever left in the fringes of society. They are never taken up. They have never given the opportunity to pursue the American dream, to pursue happiness. Moreover, the greatest power on earth also has some of the most striking numbers for the greatest collective evils that a society can face. First of all, the United States has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, at nearly top 10 nations. United States make that tall. Moreover, the United States has one of the highest violence in the world, with gun brutality, police brutality, mass shootings. In fact, police shootings in the United States and school shootings, where students bring large automatic weapons to their schools and massacre tens, 20, 30, 40, 50 of their own fellow students. This is phenomena only seen and the highest in the United States, and it is a striking example of the extent of violence that is present in the United States society. Moreover, the United States also has one of the highest divorce rates in the world, at nearly 40 to 50%, which is why nearly 70% of children in the United States grow up in broken up homes, in single parenting, in second marriages, which is why most of them are depressed, end up killing themselves or getting involved in violence or all the other social evils that plague the United States society. When we look at the racist question in the United States, moreover, the historic struggles of some important people in the United States that basically led to some changes in the institutional structure and the approach of officials of the United States towards the black community, they did change. Who were these important figures? We have such figures as the Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, both of whom were violently killed, assassinated, because the voice that they were raising for the rights of the black population, they were not conducive to some financial interests. And the growing hatred of white people at the time was best eulogized in the assassination of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Perhaps you guys know about his famous speech, "I have a dream." I have a dream that one day my children will be able to grow up in a nation where everyone is judged on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. These are immortal words said by Martin Luther King in his speech, famously known as "I have a dream." But that dream is still yet to be realized in the United States of America. But when we talk about the civil rights in the United States, the 1960s civil rights movements are very important in this context, because they are the ones who led to the Civil Rights Act, which substantially reduced the institutional and legal racism and discrimination that was directed against the black population in the United States. And there was general awakening among the black population for their rights in the 1960s, that is. But at the same time, while at home there was a revolution in civil rights, the United States was fighting the Vietnam War, oppressing and killing Vietnamese on a massive scale. Moreover, it was also supporting regressive, brutal, and absolutely violent dictatorial regimes in much of the world, including Latin America. United States is complicit in genocides of indigenous people and entire populations all around the world. United States oil companies and other big banks and corporations are responsible for exploiting indigenous people and their resources and killing their cultures and destroying forests, rainforests, and natural resources all around the world just for their financial objectives. But when we talk badly about another superpower, we forget to reflect upon ourselves. We forget to look in the mirror. So let's have a look in the mirror right now. Pakistan is one of the most unequal societies in the world, where there is a small pool of very rich people, and then there is this entire sea of the extremely poor, which only increases with coming days and does not increase thanks to a very high population increase rate and the religious monopoly on birth of our clergy class. Moreover, when talking about ethnic and racial realities, Pakistan is no alien towards this reality. And Pakistan has one of the highest sectarian violence, at least it did some time ago. And minorities are discriminated against on an institutional and a systematic level. Christians, Hindus, Sikhs are not safe in Pakistan. The Hazara Shias are not safe in Pakistan. And radicalism has become an important evil in our society, which has consumed many lives. So let's talk about the impact, the second part of our lecture, the impact of the global pandemic on Pakistan's economy. Initially, Pakistan's State Bank of Pakistan and Pakistan's Finance Ministry predicted that Pakistan's economy will contract no more than 1.5% in this year, and then we're going to see a GDP growth of 2% in the next year. So we're not in very terrible waters as, for example, France is, which is set to have its economy decreased by nearly 12% of its GDP. 12% of GDP means that at least 5 years of economic growth has been reversed. In Pakistan, perhaps it's going to be even more dramatic than that, as recent IMF report highlights that Pakistan's economic fallout because of the pandemic, the lockdown, and the immense burden on the healthcare system of Pakistan, the economic fallout is going to be much darker than previously thought. And IMF says that this year Pakistan is going to see a contraction in its economy of 2.3%, and in 2021 we're going to see a contraction of once again 1.9%, and then a growth of 0.9% in 2022. Moreover, the revenue collection targets that were set in Pakistan's negotiations with the IMF and the IMF structural adjustment program were set at 5.5 trillion rupees, but they were revised because Pakistani authorities convinced the IMF that we simply cannot achieve that target, and they were revised to 5.2 trillion rupees. But now the Finance Ministry and State Bank of Pakistan have revised them on themselves again to less than 4.5 trillion rupees, whereas the IMF still says that Pakistani authorities should try to reach the 5.2 trillion rupees target. But the way that IMF wants Pakistani authorities to collect taxes to increase their revenue to 5.2 trillion rupees is going to put direct burden on the poor people by raising tariffs, taxes, GST, and oil taxes, gas taxes, electricity taxes, and that's going to put an indirect tax burden on the mass of the poor population of Pakistan, which is something that obviously this government wants to avoid, which is why I believe that it's in the right to refuse to try to achieve the target of 5.2 trillion rupees revenue, because achieving that target would put too much of a pressure on the population of Pakistan, which just might become unsustainable, which is why Pakistan's economy is tanking right now, and there's nothing that we can do to prevent it. But the rapid financing that IMF gave us, the Asian Development Bank loans that we are being provided to fight the locust threat and the coronavirus impact, and the World Bank loans that we are getting. Furthermore, the debt deferment and restructuring that we have been granted by the G20 group and the developed world are also important cushions that we need in order to absorb the massive economic fallout of the global pandemic. Now, times are going to become harder. So I would suggest that you tighten your belt, that you reduce your expenses, and that you try to wait and be patient in these hard times, because everyone all around the world are going through hard times. If you do not have any employment, try to generate additional and different sources of employment while staying at home from the screens of your computer. You can do a lot of different things, freelancing, blog writing, and earn at least enough money to support your family's nutritional needs in these hard times. So I hope that all of you are safe from coronavirus and you are getting enough nutrition, and that you have enough resources to last for a couple of more months before our economy starts to recover itself. With that, I thank you very much for your patience.